This is Ethereal Aeons activation. If you're new to the channel, I'm Lesly Damai. Everyone else, welcome back. This is part 2 of our soul consciousness 3-part series. In video 1, we had a metaphysical deep dive on soul consciousness. We discussed what is the soul and the difference between soul, ego, and infinite consciousness. So if you don't have an inner knowing of the soul, go ahead and click the video link above, and I hope that helps. You can always come back to this video after. Everyone else, stay tuned until the end to get the most of this video. Today's video is about soul fragmentation or soul loss. Soul fragmentation or soul loss is the soul's coping mechanism when enduring traumas, shock, emotional or physical pain and suffering. So everyone experiences these things in the earth realm. Therefore, everyone experiences soul loss in their own way. In the midst of these traumatic experiences, a fragment of the soul essence swiftly pulls away from its field to find safety and relief from the event. So it's believed that this act protects the rest of the soul from enduring the full impact. I'm also going to discuss how and why this spiritual sickness happens, signs and symptoms, what happens to the soul, how soul fragmentation can occur from previous coded imprints carried with you in this vessel from another lifetime through the soul, and how entity attachments can be picked up. So let's begin. So there's a wide spectrum to take into consideration with soul fragmentation, and it's a unique experience for everyone, from the severely wounded vessel with little to almost no soul integration and remembrance. These individuals have completely given up on life. It's obvious when you look at them. And you can tell something is very off. This is why people describe some people as shells of a human. If you've heard that saying, that's basically what it is. And I have attempted to work with these individuals, and it's a tragedy, to say the least. I will get more into these types of cases in our 3rd video, where we're going to be talking about soul retrieval. But for now, let's just continue going through the spectrum a little bit. This is all going to be very broad because there are so many different dials and levels to this. So then we have the mild to moderate conditions where people seem to be functioning fine to outsiders, but they have chronic on and off depression or perhaps anxiety. And the older they get, the more they seem to realize that they have a major lifelong block. And it causes people to become obese or ill or drug dependent, and not just recreational drugs, but pharmaceutical drugs as well, and ultimately self-destructive. We then have the soul fragmented individuals that are comfortably numb. So perhaps it's not too much going on, but it keeps them comfortably numb to where the person doesn't necessarily have that spark within them anymore, that youthfulness within them anymore. And that's how most soul fragmentation begins. Examples of traumatic events can range from breakups, molestations, brainwashing, physical, mental abuse of relationships, accidents, miscarriages, abortions. Soldiers in war endure this heavily. Toxic households growing up, humiliation, rejection. It can even happen during your birthing process. The list goes on, and it can be one big blow or just consistent, nagging small hits. Your seemingly physical body is energy contained within the soul, and your soul spark emanates a bioenergetic field around you, also known as an aura. When a person experiences a trauma or shock, emotional or physical pain and suffering, a part of the soul evacuates and leaves. When it evacuates the entire energetic field, there is now an opening or a slit in the energy field. And I just brought this up, this notion I'm about to talk about, I just brought it up inside the School of Mysticism about a lecture where Thanuj, the founder of the school, mentioned one of nature's fundamental truths, which is nature abhors a vacuum. Meaning, if you dig a hole in the ground, within no time, that hole will be filled with leaves, sticks, rocks, bugs, twigs. Perhaps even a little critter will crawl in there, a rat maybe, whatever. A little critter will go in there and make a home for themselves, right? And this is the most powerful example of what happens to a human aura. The piece of the aura that leaves the field leaves a hole which will be filled by something else. So the soul essence that escaped is replaced. It has to be. That's the way the law of nature works. So I will give you just about 2 or 3 examples of this because there's a big chain reaction that can lead to endless outcomes and shapes and consistency to one's own aura, which then directly has a tangible impact with a person's physical health, their mental state, spiritual health, their personality, and of course, their consciousness. So example 1 is that the area that the aura was compromised, that space, there's now an opening in that field. And if there's more than one, okay, if you start having multiple openings, it can easily be perceived by an external entity. And so it sees the hole in the aura. And these entities are conscious, let me tell you, but they don't have much or any soul essence. They run off of something else. So you are running off your soul spark, right? Your soul essence. As I said, that emanates a field around you. That is your first protective layer. It's not your skin, okay? It's your energy field. And so you've now compromised that. And now something outside of you that also has a sort of intelligence or consciousness can spot it. And so just like that hole in nature, when the rat came by and it made a home in the hole, that can happen as well with a person and an external entity. There's literally astral leeches. So think of them as a leech. What does a leech do? It burrows in under the skin and sustains itself by sucking on the blood. Now, these entities do the same thing to a person's bioenergetic field, but it's doing it to your soul's essence, okay? And they will just burrow up in there like that rat would and create a little home and piggyback off of that energy field for a long time. And they siphon what energy they can. And like a leech, they use the energy field as a host. So they've moved in without the person being aware, because individuals don't have their main eye open. Okay, they don't have a spiritual eye. Our society is fake, and it teaches you to see it to believe it. It's this program people run off of full time. You will never know what is really there besides the physical reality, which isn't even physical in the first place. So this is a way that I talked about a lot about entity attachments and all of this, and thought forms that can penetrate your field that aren't yours. They're all coming in through the holes in the aura that were created when the soul evacuated the field. Another example is when the soul essence evacuated the body, the field, right? There is now a sense of feeling loss. And we're going to go into this a bit more, the signs and symptoms. But there is a sense deep within you, an intuitive sense that the individual feels, yes, like something's off. So whether it's they feel spaced out, they feel empty, right? A lot of times they say they don't feel whole. They're going to replace that empty feeling that they're sensing with something else to try and cushion it, to try and put a Band-Aid over it, which is where we come up with these addictions. People become addicted to certain things to try and fill up that void. So, I went through a big sex, drugs, rock and roll time in my life to fill a great void. And it only brings you more voids to the point of self-hate. Okay? But that was me trying to cope with this missing piece, to avoid feeling and caring and all of that. Because when you start to feel it, it's a sorrow. And so you try anything you can to rebel against that. And so I rebelled against everything. I rebelled against society. I rebelled against everything. And I was, in fact, rebelling against my own soul. So the ego was recklessly driving me down a path where the ego consciousness was fully in charge. And I had a soul, but I wasn't honoring it. And so if you stay down that path, the entire life begins to unravel. And so that's why people go through these phases. Now, when people can't get over these phases, that is when you have a soul fragmentation that has not been healed or retrieved, okay? And we are going to get a lot more into that in the next video. But for now, I did want to give you some examples of what happens to the person after their soul essence is lost. These are 2 examples of what can replace those lost parts. Okay, so some of the signs and symptoms to look out for. This gets pretty interesting because it's going to be different for a lot of you guys. And basically, the main types of things people say once they have experienced significant soul loss is that they feel like a zombie-like, okay? I had somebody I was working with would always say they felt like they weren't in their body. They felt like they could hear themselves talking, they would say. And what that is literally, it is because most of their soul essence is not in their body anymore. There is a detachment. So people describe it as feeling zoned out, not fully in their bodies, or as if a piece of them is missing. Oftentimes, if someone can't heal from a breakup or a death, a piece of their soul essence could still be with the other individual. You will feel drained. Your energy will literally feel drained, and then you'll go to the doctors and everything's fine. There's very little willpower. There's always a constant anxiety. You have memory issues, or you have difficulties getting over certain issues of your life, like you just don't have control or will. And I also mentioned that sometimes there's the consistent small blows in your life that add up. That can be releasing your seed too much. This goes to the men. Releasing your seed too much contains soul essence in it, okay? And so that's one of them. Too much social media. Okay, tell me how drained you would feel if you were on social media for 2 hours. You would feel wiped. You would feel zonked. You would feel like a zombie. Hence, that is one of the symptoms of soul loss. Promiscuous sex. Come on. We're not even going to get into that. I have a video on the divine masculine and feminine, inverted sexuality in the matrix, I believe. I'll have a link to that below where I talk about that. Promiscuous sex and sexually transmitted demons. And stay tuned for the next video where we're going to talk about different methods for soul integration, soul retrieval, whether it's through a experienced shaman, whether it's through hypnotherapy, rituals, spells, astral travel, lucid dreaming. There's different exercises you can do to bring you back into an emotional state to then confront it. And it's a way to begin your spiritual sovereignty and to make your energy feel integrated and completely impermeable to these external dark forces, and to bring your soul back home within yourself. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe and like the video if you've resonated, and check out the links in my description. Join us inside the School of Mysticism, where this is what we get into all the time, and you can be on an uncensored platform with other awakened spirits. Also, I have one-on-one classes available. I think I still have my sale going on for a day or two, so get 25% off my classes for a limited time. And also, if you want to work with me even closer, you can check out the link to my one-on-one spiritual sovereignty coaching. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.